Welcome back to Mind Over Habit, the podcast where we explore the mindset, strategies, and habits that help people grow stronger, think better, and create meaningful success. Today, we are stepping into the world of e commerce, digital marketing, and paid advertising. For many entrepreneurs, getting attention online isn't the hardest part. The real challenge is turning that attention into customers and doing it consistently enough to build a scalable business. Our guest today has spent the last several years helping e-commerce brands do exactly that. We are going to talk about paid advertising, customer acquisition, scaling, mistakes, founder make, and perhaps most importantly, the mindset required to grow without simply throwing more money at the problem. My guest today is Dominic Kronthaler, an e-commerce paid advertising specialist who helps e-commerce founders scale their brands through online advertising. Over the past 7 years of running his agency, Dominic says his work has contributed $730 billion in total revenue across e-commerce clients through paid advertising. His expertise include platforms such as Facebook and Google Ads, online marketing, B2B marketing, and personal branding. So join me in welcoming Dominic to the show. Dominic, you are welcome to Mind Over Habits.
Thank you very much for having me and looking forward what questions you have prepared for me. So very much looking forward to that.
All right. Dominic, let's start with your story. What initially attracted you to e-commerce and paid advertising?
Long story short is actually in the beginning I started with hotels first and bringing them away from booking.com, and then basically a friend of mine and including myself, we basically started a fashion store back then, which wasn't really fashion, it was more like merchandising. And actually, before COVID hit back then, my interest was switched, like basically like into fashion and into hotels. So 3 months before COVID hit, I basically had my first e-commerce clients in the fashion industry, and since that, I can say like since the last 6 years, I almost all into e-com. Nowadays, specializing more in skincare brands and scaling them, especially if they do $100,000 or euros in revenue per month.
All right, Dominic, you have worked with e-commerce clients responsible for a combined 730 billion in revenue. What have those experiences taught you about that separate brands that scale from brands that struggle?
I think the number one mistake is that most of the time they don't really know their actual numbers, like profit and loss, contribution margins, and so on. And then they scale blindly. So that is the first thing. The second thing is you need to have the right team in place. So most people, ecom brands I've seen or have worked with, they hired a lot of talented people. They fought in the beginning, so they hired fast, but they fired slowly. That kept their margins very low on top of that. And the third part is like, as I said before, scaling blindly, not knowing their audience, not knowing if there is really a product market fit for their product, um, you know, and all the basics in between, from website optimizations to landing pages to good offers that are really scalable and so on. But the number one key is like mostly that they don't know their numbers. And then they scale on paid ads, like, more and more ad spend on a daily basis, creative volume up and everything, but actually the margins shrink day by day because they scale blindly.
All right. So, why should an e-commerce founder consider paid advertising instead of relying primarily on organic traffic?
I mean, of course, paid advertising is one of the fastest, maybe the fastest way to scale if you do it right, if you have the right partner and everything in place and know how to do marketing. Organic is great. So at the end of the day, you need to have a mix of different acquisition channels. What keeps you long-term profitable will always be email marketing. You own them and they make sure that you are profitable. Organic is one of the best ways, in my opinion, because you can test what kind of reels, what kind of content actually can go viral organically. And if you push it with the right advertisement, for example, on Meta or TikTok these days, or you do partnership ads where you basically partnership with an influencer or a brand ambassador, then it's one of the best ways. And the number one reason why you should do paid advertising is because of the competitors. Everybody is running paid ads. So you need to find a way to do it better and scale over time. I always recommend starting on Meta, and then you can expand once you're profitable to Google, TikTok Shop these days. I mean, you have plenty of options, but brand positioning and organic will always be the key. Especially organic marketing is very good for retention and for building a brand besides paid acquisition strategies.
Okay. So, what is the biggest mistake you see e-commerce founders making when they first start running paid ads?
As I said before, not knowing their numbers and trying to be on multiple platforms at a time. So if they see, hey, for example, you can run ChatGPT ads these days, instead of focusing one cold traffic channel first, for example, Meta, in my opinion, it's the best channel to start with, then you should scale and make it profitable on Meta ads first before you expand, knowing your numbers. And um, third, I would say is like there's a lot of copying of competitors' ads these days. So if they see like, hey, the competitor has a good offer, they implement it one by one. I'm not saying all, but especially like beginners or drop shippers, you see mostly the same ads, and then they think like I copy and paste it into my ad account and then I'm profitable. I think like you should get inspired, but you should bring your own signature and creativity into your creatives on top of that.
All right. So, when should a brand prioritize mental slash Facebook advertising when uh, does Google ads make more sense?
So your question is like, when does Google Ads make more sense, or what was your question? Okay. Um, I mean, Google Ads, the best thing with Google Ads these days is like that you have a higher AOV, average order value per customer. They have a problem, they go on Google and then they buy mostly. Of course, depending on reviews, pricing, and so on. But Google is like good for buyers straight away or people who are actively looking for a solution. But I would not recommend starting with Google first. As I said before, manage meta ads first. Once you're profitable there, you can expand a certain percentage of your monthly revenue into Google Ads.
So, let me ask this: what actually makes someone stop scrolling, pay attention to an advertising, and ultimately become a customer?
First of all, you need to differentiate your ads first to make it really stand out. everything that is native and does not look like an ad will automatically have a higher chance of actually being not ignored. That's the first thing. The second thing is like when it comes to videos those days, of course, the hook, getting people's attention within the first 3 seconds and knowing what you're talking about is another scenario. And the third part, I would say, if you don't do reels like video ads, then you should have, for example, a partnership ad with an influencer or a meme, everything that is likely shareable with a friend. So think about yourself. You see an ad that you find funny or interesting, and you're willing to share it. Most of the time, it gets your attention, besides all the hundreds of other ads we all seen each day.
Okay. So, at what point should an e-commerce founder start thinking about scaling their advertising, and what needs to be in place before they do?
I think the niche does not matter. I think like once there's a product market fit, I mean, I have not worked with every niche, but I think once there's a market for it and product market fit, and you have some competitors and you know the product and you know the market, so why not go for there? And your second part of the question, that really depends. That really depends. Like I think like honestly, they should never work with an agency below 30 or 50,000 euros or dollars a month to save some agency fees. But once they actually start getting organic sales and they kind of have money to invest, of course, it's depending on the situation. Some people have already money saved up and then they can already start running ads with, I don't know, 1.5 to 2,000 euros a month. So like 30 euros a day makes sense already. These days, I would say $50 or 50 euros a day. Below that, I would not start running ads, honestly.
All right, Dominic, I want to ask how important is the product or offer itself compared with the advertising? And can great advertising save a weak offer?
I did not understand your whole question. You got kind of like acoustically, I could not get it.
All right. So why do some business see good result at a small advertising budget, but struggle when they increase their spending?
I mean, smaller advertisement means basically means you can test less. So you have less chances to test different ad angles for different kind of personas. Or let's say you have multiple offers you want to test. If you have small budget, you can't really do that. Um, the part that makes them not ready to scale is again, everything comes back to their finances. If they don't know their numbers or if they don't have the right tracking in place, and they spend on the wrong platform and they think like, hey, Meta is our number one profitable channel, then they scale there. While in the meantime, it's email marketing, for example, and Google Ads, and then they do 80% Meta, but only 20% on Google. That's also not good. So the tracking part, not knowing their numbers, and I would say like um, testing blindly, like just copying other creatives from competitors and thinking they will automatically perform for them. So they need to have the research and then the concepts in place before they test something blindly.
Okay. So, what numbers should an e-commerce founder actually pay attention to when evaluating their advertising campaigns?
That's a good question. Like contribution margins, like actually their profit and loss each month, the actual fixed cost at the end of the day, right? So, can they really afford to run ads? And I think like one of the best examples is like David Beckham's brand, IM8. They I read an article today on LinkedIn. Maybe I'm wrong. I have not screenshotted it, but I think they afford or can afford, maybe I'm wrong, to acquire a new customer of $300. And that sounds super expensive in the first place. But if the average order value and customer lifetime value in the short, middle, and long term time frame is actually super high, then it is possible and if they're profitable. So one of the KPIs on paid advertisement is like CPA, cost per new customer acquisition. And if they know their numbers, like their margins and everything, and they have calculated how much they can actually spend on advertisement, then they should have the KPI like, okay, how much can I afford to acquire a customer? How much am I willing to spend on a maximum to acquire a new customer? But then they should have upsells, cross sales in place. If you only have one product and you cannot work with subscription or something, then it's pretty difficult if you're depending on new customers all the time.
All right. So every entrepreneurs eventually has campaigns that don't work. How should founder respond when an advertising campaign loses money?
I mean, of course, the easiest one is always to turn it off immediately. That's the number one tip. The second thing is like everything comes down to the research and testing different ad angles around the persona. It's so called in advertising, we call it concepts. So it's really, really depending. Now we enter very soon Q4, so Black Friday comes around. Now it's middle of August or almost end of August actually. Now it's the best time to prepare for that and come up with strategies to acquire a lot of new customers to get them into your email subscription, like email newsletter and so on. So every customer you acquire now before, let's say October or actually end of November when Black Friday comes, is only profitable for you if you have the right systems and the backend infrastructure in place. But the first thing is always turn off the ad. And if you lost money there and you have already, let's say, email subscribers or whatsoever, then run email campaigns to make the losses a break even one, for example, or reverse engineer your current ads basically, but never let run a non-profitable ad. But on top of that, make sure that it's really not profitable because on the meta ad account, the KPIs and the metrics are not correct and it's depending on the attribution window, right? So make sure that you have the right tracking in place to really make the decision if the ad is profitable or not.
All right, thank you for that response, Dominic. So, how much of successful advertising is really about understanding human psychology and consumer behavior?
Bro, I think there are a lot of brands. I like HA1. In percentage, I can say that I know most of the time beginners and so on, they did not get it right, especially when the copycats come to the market and everything. But besides human psychology, I think like you should have written books. I mean, you have AI these days, right? It helps you a lot. You give it a role and then it helps you write winning copy. But of course, you have to understand what a good copy is and so on. Uh, but a lot of them, actually, a lot of them do not know the behavior, the human psychology or buying behavior to really make profitable ads, profitable websites, profitable uh, uh, email newsletters, email copies, and everything around it. I think like you should always watch out for top tier talents, copywriters that really know how to get their attention. And then you can expand from there.
All right. So, what mindset does an entrepreneur need when they are investing significant amount of money into advertising and trying to scale?
You mean how much money they need for advertising? Yeah, as I said before, best case scenario, if you can start already with 100 euros a day, worst case 50 euros a day. Of course, it's always depending, but from the e-commerce side of things, I would not suggest to expand globally straight away. Start in your local market, first of all, where you speak the native language. And then if you have 50 to 100 euros a day to start with, I think like that is already a solid start to begin with.
Okay, how can funders make sure they are not simply buying revenue, but actually building a sustainable and profitable e-commerce business?
That comes down to understanding your numbers again, right? The P&L sheet, first of all. Then when it comes to advertisement, you should always have different KPIs um, to make a weekly and daily decision if you run profitable ads at a time. And then, of course, the attribution side of things. You have third-party tracking tools these days that work pretty well. If you understand them and if you combine it or basically lap it over your P&L sheet and you actually understand those numbers, then you have a really good start. Yeah.
So, Dominic, if someone listening as an e-commerce business today and wants to start using paid ads to grow, what are the first three things you would tell them to do?
The first thing is like, as I said before, start with one channel, start with meta ads first. Once you have a solid track record, a good revenue, real customers, and everything, I would always say work with an agency or a freelancer, however you want to do it, um, to really have a partner that help you expand, help you um, basically scale profitably, that you can trust, and then you can always basically once you grow bigger, um, become or create an in-house team. But in the beginning, it's really uh, you just have to start. Make sure you have money that you can invest on paid ads. Start with Meta first once you're profitable there. And once you do not want to do the media buying stuff, creative stuff yourself, then it's time either you hire freelancer, agency, or if you can afford it, an in-house team. But build the skill set first.
Yeah. So, what would be your final message to everyone listening today, and how can they connect with you?
Make sure that you know your numbers. I know I said it multiple times. Have your numbers in place. My agency is called Ads Performer. We are based in Copenhagen, Denmark. You can reach out on the website www.results.adsperformer.com or Instagram paid ads dom. There you can follow me if you do 100,000 euros or dollars per month. And if you're in the skincare niche, then I'm happy to help you and expand globally with the right paid advertising strategies and with the real numbers in place. I'm happy to give a free profit truth audit call with every e-commerce brand. Does not matter if they're in the skincare industry or not.
So one thing that really stands out is that paid advertising isn't simply about pressing a button and buying traffic. Behind successful campaign are strategy, psychology, data, testing, discipline, and perhaps most importantly, the willingness to learn from what isn't working. From for entrepreneurs, that is a valuable lesson far beyond advertising. Growth requires experimentation, it requires patience, and sometimes it requires humility to look at the numbers and change direction. Dominic, thank you for joining us on Mind Over Habit and sharing your experience with our audience. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me, and I'm looking forward to see the episode. And thanks for your time and your great questions.
It's a pleasure. And to everyone listening, remember, don't just chase more traffic. Build something worth coming back to. Until next time, keep growing, keep learning, and keep strengthening your mindset. This is Moses, and you have been listening to Mind Over Habit podcast.